The DNA Diaries, a page 256 library publication, a book authored by Denny Roberts Ameke, and read to you by Charlotte Mugisha. Story 1.
Cloning and the Future, Chapter 6. The seventh subject. The line between a miracle and a monster is thinner than we ever want to admit. End quote. Ezekiel Andama. Rain had started falling by the time Helen left Buziga, a slow drizzling that blurred the city lights into soft beams and made the roads glossy with reflection. The kind of rain that didn't announce itself with thunder or lightning, but sneaked in silently, like secrets slipping through cracks. She drove fast at first, heart pounding with everything she had just learned. Naomi wasn't different from Keon, but she was another subject entirely, older by 2 years, carefully engineered to test emotional stability. And Keon, her son. He was something else, the seventh attempt, the only success. Her phone buzzed beside her. Another message from James. Don't believe anything they say. They're part of the program too. Come home, we need to talk about subject number 7. She didn't reply it, and she didn't need to, because she was coming home to face him. In front of her, cars stretched endlessly in both directions, blaring like a masterpiece of frustration. The kind of traffic jam only Kabalagala could deliver, where minutes turned into hours and patience dissolved into frustration. She sat there, fingers clutching the steering wheel, eyes scanning the faces of strangers through fogged windows. Was one of them watching her, planning to make her disappear, like Liana Chitende? The thought made her stomach twist. By the time she finally broke free from the jam and reached Ntinda, it was nearly 22:15 hours. The house was dark inside except for the kitchen light. She packed slowly, got out, and walked up the stone path, her breath visible in the cool night air of that evening. Inside, the scent of tea lingered in the corridor, but she moved quickly upstairs. The children's room was at the end of the corridor, but she arrived in less than a minute and then gently pushed the door open. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting stripes across the floor. All 4 children were asleep. The eldest slept curled in her nightdress, blanket tucked under her chin. The second child moved slightly, then stilled. The third murmured something in his sleep but didn't move. And in the corner, near the window, stood the crib. Keon's crib. Subject number 7. He lay curled beneath the blanket and breathing softly, his crescent-shaped birthmark visible even in the dim light. She leaned down, kissed his forehead gently, and whispered a silent prayer. Then she turned and descended the stairs down to the kitchen. James waited for her while sipping his tea, as if in slow motion. He sat calm and unmoved, as if he's been preparing for this moment the entire day. The confrontation. How could you, James, she began, standing in the doorway. James didn't look surprised. I hoped you wouldn't go there, he replied quietly. Helen stepped forward. Lydia, Naomi, and the second house. You've been living another life behind my back, behind our backs. He exhaled slowly. I didn't want you to find out like this. She slammed the journal onto the table between them. There are no better ways to find out your husband has another family, she spat. Tell me everything. James looked at her, really looked at her, as if trying to decide how much truth she could bear. I married Lydia 5 years ago, he admitted. I needed to see if the replication process worked across different environments, if bonding could be repeated, if love wasn't just an accident. Helen's breath caught. And Naomi? She is part of the same test, James said, a subject designed to ensure emotional stability. Helen shook her head. No, this isn't science. This is sick. James leaned forward. You don't understand what's at stake, he said calmly. Naomi was the 5th attempt. Keon is the 7th. He's the only one who survived past infancy without breaking down emotionally or biologically. She stared at him. What happens when he turns 5? Silence. And then they activate. Her stomach twisted. Activate what? James hesitated. The network. Before she could demand more answers, a loud crash echoed from the front door. The door was kicked open, and 2 men in black jackets stormed inside. They moved fast, efficient, and professional. Helen barely had time to react before one of them grabbed her from behind, twisting her arms back. She struggled, kicked, and screamed, but it was useless. One of the men removed a syringe and injected her in the neck. In a second, Helen's world slowed down. Sounds became distant, and her body grew heavy. She managed one final act. She pulled her phone from her pocket, typed a message, and pressed send. Then darkness. The abduction. As Helen collapsed into unconsciousness, the 2 men moved with surgical precision. One stayed behind to secure the perimeter. The other rushed upstairs into the children's room. The 3 older children moved but remained asleep. But Keon was already awake, as if waiting for the stranger. The man approached his small bed and found the boy seated. He didn't cry, didn't move, just stared back. For a moment the man hesitated. Then he scooped the child up gently, wrapped him in a blanket, and then headed downstairs, out through the door and into the van. Gone. Rebecca had been in town all day and hadn't gone home. Something about the air that night felt wrong. Not worrying, not violent, but charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. She couldn't explain it. She only knew to trust it. She sat alone in her car outside a closed pharmacy on Lumumba Avenue, phone in hand, staring at the screen like it might offer answers. The city buzzed around her, taxis honking, street vendors calling out their last sales of the night, lovers arguing under flickering lights, but she barely had any of it. Her instincts told her something was coming. She just didn't know what. Then her phone buzzed. A message lit up the screen. 4 words. They're here. Please help. It was from Helen, sent from inside her home just before she blacked out. Rebecca didn't think twice. She started the engine, put her foot on the accelerator and drove off. By the time she arrived in Ntinda, the rain had picked up again, falling in soft intervals that blurred the windscreen and made the streets look like they were underwater. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that follows sudden violence. She pulled up sharply in front of the house. The front door was ajar, not broken down, but wide open, inviting or warning. She stepped inside cautiously, one hand holding the small knife she kept in her bag. The living room was dark, but the kitchen light still on. And there, slumped against the wall beside the table, was Helen, eyes fluttering, her breath shallow, and her lips moving soundlessly. Unconscious but breathing slowly. Rebecca rushed forward and checked her pulse. She's weak, drugged, not dead, not yet. She bent beside her, gently lifting Helen's head. "Hey," she whispered, "stay with me." But there was no response. Outside, the night fell even more silent. Nobody knew what was happening, not even their close neighbors. Rebecca cursed under her breath, lifted Helen over her shoulder with practiced ease, and moved fast toward the door. She didn't have much time. The house was empty except for their maid, who stood frozen near the doorway, tears streaming silently down her face. "Where is he?" Rebecca asked urgently. The maid shook her head. "They took the little one," she whispered. The baby. Rebecca's stomach twisted. Keon was already gone. She didn't manage to arrive fast to save him, but now she must concentrate on Helen and save her life. She didn't ask more questions, just carried Helen out into the rain, loaded her into the backseat of her car, and sped off into the night. Helen woke up the next morning in a small clinic near Gayaza. Rebecca was beside her. "She's awake," someone murmured. Helen groaned. Her body felt like it had been submerged in acid. She tried to sit up, but Rebecca held her down. "Easy," she said. "You were drugged." Helen's voice came out throaty. "My children." Rebecca nodded. "They're safe. I took them to your mother. No one will find them there." Helen closed her eyes. "Did we get him back?" Rebecca looked away. Helen's heart sank. "They took him," she cried. Rebecca placed a hand on hers. "We'll find him," she promised. "Together." Helen opened her eyes. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Where's James?" Rebecca's jaw tightened. "He vanished during the chaos." Helen exhaled sharply. "He let it happen to us." Rebecca nodded. "He wanted them to take Keon." Helen wiped her tears. "Then we must find him," she said, "before it's too late." Rebecca made her gaze. "We're starting from Ginger," her voice resolute and final.